Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. It is 2 o'clock, and we're going to get started here in just a minute. I see a lot of participants are logging on right now, so we're going to just give it a minute in respect of everyone's time, but just give everybody a few seconds to get onto the Zoom call, and we will get started here in about a minute. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for everyone who has come to our webinar today. We're very excited to be talking about today's topic, which is inside the mind of a donor. For those of you who have been on our webinars before, welcome back. We did take a couple of months off during the summertime for a little .org coffee shop hiatus, but we're glad to be back with you for sessions in September, October, and November this fall. So my name is Amy Wong, and I'm the president of .org Solutions. And if you could just do a quick wave or say hello in the chat box and just let us know that you are able to hear us and see us. Great, thank you very much. For those of you who are new to our webinars today and new to .org Solutions, we'd like to welcome you. I just want to talk a little bit about our .org Cafe professional development opportunities and coffee shop webinars in particular. At .org, we really believe in providing as much insight and education to the nonprofit sector as we can, and we do that through what we call our .org Cafe, and it's our series of blogs, it's our monthly emails that go out, and then also our webinar series and our social media. So our goal is to just be really informative, but also relatable, and provide you with things that you can use and connect you with experts that can help you do your jobs better. So today, just to give you a quick format of our webinar, today only the panelists and myself, the moderator, will be actually on the screen today, and everyone else will be muted and off video. However, that doesn't mean you can't participate in the call. We encourage questions throughout the webinar. We will take those as they come along. So this is more of a Q&A format than just us presenting slides along the way. So we thank everybody who submitted questions ahead of time, and we did get several of those. So again, obviously this is a topic people are really interested in learning more about, and we'll do our best to address those questions during the session. Again, both the chat box and the Q&A will be enabled, so you can ask questions during the session. And we want to make sure that the questions can be addressed right away, will be addressed. If there are questions that are a little bit more broad, just be patient, and we will save time for sure, about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the questions for chat. So, or I'm sorry, to answer those questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So understanding the motivations, behaviors, and actions of your donors is vital to meeting your fundraising goals. And so when you look at the giving experience through the mind of a donor, you can really understand what encourages them to give and connect with them in more meaningful ways. So today we're going to talk about the importance of understanding behavior, our donor behavior, and then also incorporating some tactics into your fundraising plans to help you raise more money. We know that each donor's experience is unique, and there are many similarities that shape a person's decision to make a charitable gift. So we're going to go ahead and get started, but first I would like to introduce our panelists for today. Dr. Meng-Hua Hsieh is an assistant professor of marketing at the College of Business Administration and the Ph.D. coordinator in the Department of Marketing and Entrepreneurship at Kent State. Her research focuses on 2 main areas. The first one is marketing communications for motivating people to donate to charities and to engage in healthy behaviors. and processing styles and how technology for influencing response to marketing campaigns. So this is what we're all doing right now. So we're so excited that she's joined us today and can share her expertise. She has been selected as a finalist for the Kent State University College of Business Administration's Dean's Distinguished Scholar Award and has presented her work at many conferences such as the Association for Consumer Research and the Society for Consumer Psychology. She completed her Ph.D. in marketing from the University of Washington, and prior to academia, she also worked in branding. So she's been in many of our shoes. So not only does she do the research, but she's been involved professionally in the area as well. And when she's not busy with her teaching and research, she loves to travel and take photos. So I would like to welcome Dr. Hsieh to our panel today. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy, for your introduction. My name is Meng-Hua Hsieh. I know it sounds exotic to you. It's okay, so I can repeat my name the second time, Meng-Hua Hsieh. So thank you so much for having me today. It's a great honor to be here.
Well, when you and I first talked, there were so many things that we knew we could talk about. So I thought we would kind of take everybody through kind of some of the basics. And, you know, I think one of the first things is we talk about, you and I talk a lot about consumer behavior. And often when we think of donors, we don't think of them as consumers, which is maybe not the right way to think about it. So why is understanding consumer psychology specifically important for nonprofits?
I would say the main reason is that donors are your target audience. So your goal is to offer them an opportunity to help. And so understanding consumer psychology can help you know what donors are thinking and what is on their mind. So you can communicate with them more effectively and more efficiently. In addition, once you know your consumers, your donors, you can segment donors and craft your campaign, your communication for different audiences. The second reason that I think consumers and donors actually have similar journey. So what do I mean by that? We hope consumers can eventually take some action. For example, follow us on social media, buying our product or services, or telling their friends and family about how much they like our product, etc. Non-for-profit actually also want donors to make certain actions. So in consumer psychology, understanding consumer journeys and the stages that consumers go through during their purchasing process is quite important. So I would say the same logic applies to understanding donor journey. So to understand this journey and to understand how your campaign might work and why it doesn't work, I want to share with you a famous model. It's called the AIDA model. So the first stage that donor and consumers go through during their decision process is called attention. So basically, a potential donor may have never heard about your organization, and they ask, what is your organization about? So at this stage, you need to grab donors' attention and let them know what your organization supports. So in other words, first of all, you need to build brand awareness. It doesn't stop there. So once consumers and donors know about your brand, know about your organization, then the next stage is interest. So that's what I stands for. I stands for interest. At this stage, you need to generate donors' interest and make them think that I like you. I like your organization. So they will start to search and gather more information about your organization. So make sure your messages are engaging and inspiring so they enjoy reading your content. So after your donors know about you and they like you, you enter the next stage. The next stage is desire. You need to stimulate desire. So your goal at this stage is to make a donor think that I want it. So how to achieve this? You need to build trust. For example, you can provide the thank you notes that you get from those who benefit from other donors' previous gift. The last stage is action. So your goal at this stage is get a potential donor to decide that I want to take some action, such as I'm going to a fundraising event, and eventually I'm going to donate. And this model can help you understand how to convert strangers into customers and donors, and also help you identify at which stage that your potential donor goes through.
We're going to dive even deeper into that as we go along, but I think that's a really great way that you set the stage for this conversation today, because it's different donors or different prospects are at different stages, kind of like consumers are when they're buying. And that's a great way to think of them. So, when we think about consumers and kind of their mindset and psychology, many of us in the marketing field and fundraising are talking about like how much this changed during the pandemic. And so talk a little bit about how the consumer mindset and psychology behavior did change as the pandemic has kind of continued to go.
Sure. During the pandemic, consumers' lifestyle has changed. So one big change is actually consumers integrate more technology into their lives. And this has changed how and where they work, and also has changed consumers' shopping behavior, entertainment, health, and fitness. So it has a big impact in many different ways. So let me talk about the first biggest changes that I observed is consumers are consuming more information online. For example, video conferencing has been part of our life during pandemic. Video conferencing provides a tool to allow for our virtual humor interactions, such as attending a virtual webinar like what we are having today. It also changed how people work, and even providing an opportunity for virtual happy hours to connect with our family, friends, and coworkers. Another changes is consumers have a greater desire for home entertainment during the pandemic because of the lockdown and business closure. So for the past 18 months, people have been looking for ways to entertain themselves and their family. They are afraid of going to movie theaters, but they spend more time and money on digital streaming services, because this is the time when a lot of family are at home. So digital streaming services such as Netflix, Disney Plus subscribers are growing. And I also noticed that virtual reality headset ownership has increased during the pandemic. And a report by Mintel also support this. So I also do some research about new technology and how using VR and how does that impact marketing. So actually more consumers are using VR headset to play video game and view live sporting events and concerts. So VR offers consumers a great, vivid entertainment experience. The second biggest change is pandemic actually changed consumers' shopping behavior. So consumers are worried about the risk of being exposed to virus. So they are now shopping online and prefer to use contactless payment option. So you see a surge in e-commerce. And exercise is quite important to manage and maintain our mental health and emotional health. And this is even more important during the pandemic. During the pandemic, consumers are using at-home fitness option and digital fitness because the location is convenient and the timing is flexible. So a study shows that more people are using a fitness app to help them exercise during the pandemic. It also changed consumers' beauty routines. So consumers say that if they don't need to turn on their video when they do a Zoom meeting, they don't need to put on makeup. So working from home and limited social events lowers the sales of makeup and fragrances. And obviously people spend less on travel, and outdoor dining is getting popular. The last thing I want to talk about is COVID also has a big impact on consumer behavior in terms of in baking and home improvement. So during the pandemic, bread baking is popular, and more people are doing a do-it-yourself home project. Why? A study shows that completing this project make people feel emotional satisfaction, feel empowered. So how does this impact fundraiser? Fundraisers need to know how to engage their donors during the pandemic, especially when most of the events are virtual and digital.
So I think it's really interesting too, because, I'm going from, my own personal experience and on how our behaviors change. People I think are, because they're consuming more online, they're being more homebodies, they're finding new experiences. This is a challenge to fundraisers, but at the same time, it could be a great opportunity to introduce new ways of doing things, correct?
I agree, totally agree.
So, but the one thing I know you and I talked about, and we have actually a question that popped up. The one thing that you and I talked about when we were on is that it is a little bit soon to tell, though. What of these behaviors are temporary, and what of these behaviors are things that might just be permanent? And I know it's a little too soon to tell, but what are your thoughts on that?
So I would say, I think some of the, especially, I think now it's this convenience. It's the king during pandemic. So I think if the brands or the organization can, still deliver those convenience, that people will still like that. So in terms of how, I think maybe people during this time before pandemic, people may not do much of the shopping online, for example, like, especially for those you need to touch and feel, or like grocery shopping. Before pandemic, people tend to go to the grocery stores. So I would say if people's consumer are still thinking and see that value and the convenience, they will continue doing that. Like online shopping will be still see that growth, maybe drop, but I would say still be more, people tend to do like seeking more convenience as compared to pre-pandemic.
Which the important part of that is actually how people are able to navigate getting the information that they need from a nonprofit and being able to make a donation online.
Exactly.
Simply.
Exactly.
So we do have a good question here. Does consumer mindset also affect donating time or serving on a board rather than giving dollars? And can the same principles be applied?
That's a wonderful question. It's about how do you ask donating time versus donating money. So I would say that in terms of how to ask people donating time, rather than just giving money, is an art. Like I would say there are two things I want to touch on. Is the first one is I came across the research that's showing people actually are, when they're thinking about money and when they're thinking about time, actually they think different things. So what do I mean by that is, so when you thinking of money, actually will make you think more in a concrete term. But when you think about time, you will think it more abstract, at the abstract level. So how does it mean for a fundraiser? Is in marketing and consumer psychology, you can consider a way that matching that thinking style. So when people are thinking of time because they think more in the abstract term, what you can do is you can craft a message that is more concrete. For example, like how, in terms of more concrete in terms of like how people can do what they what can they contribute? What exactly the thing they can donate their time or do the volunteer work for you that help your organization? So I would say using that concrete term in your message would be one way of doing to increase people's volunteering intention.
So it's going to be important to be just extraordinarily clear on if you're asking somebody to do something, showing them the impact of what their time is going to entail, but also be very specific on the expectations is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about how the consumer mindset, psychology, and behavior have not changed with the pandemic. Because I think, we're all still humans and certain behaviors are still going to come into play. What are some things that haven't changed during the pandemic?
I would say consumers, they still want something that has value. Like convenience is, for example, like what I just said about convenience. Convenience create value. So you make sure you provide a value to your donors. And consumers still want to feel that a message or a cause resonate with them. This doesn't change. And they want to feel their donation matters and that they can make an impact. And then also, consumers still purchase the brand that they are familiar with. So during this uncertain time, consumers are worried about many things. They worry about virus, they worry about their financial situation, their job security, etc. So during this uncertain time, they try to regain control and certainty through their buying behavior, shopping behavior, etc. So I came across a research that I want to share with you, which shows that consumers prefer to buy the brands and products that they trust and are familiar with to regain control during the pandemic. So based on this research, I think consumers are likely still willing to donate to the charity that they are familiar with and that they are passionate about.
And I think that's really interesting too, because we all have to, in working with the nonprofit sector, there are many opportunities to stay in touch with our donors when we're not soliciting them, and making sure that you continue to talk about. I have to applaud the nonprofit sector as a whole for doing such an extraordinary job of doing a lot of rethinking, because so many were impacted, not just directly by the pandemic itself, by having to provide services differently, and but they also had to cancel fundraisers and really pivot and do a lot of things differently. And so but you're right, there are things that haven't changed. Just so that regular communication with the donors and talk about the value that you have, even though you may be doing some things differently or serving your clientele differently.
Exactly.
And they want to know that too.
Yeah,
I think they want to know that too. So mindset's not like a singular thing, right? There's two different kinds of mindset, a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And as we're talking about donors, can you maybe explain a little bit more about the two different types and why they're important as we think about donors?
So let me talk about the 4 key characteristics that this growth mindset and fixed mindset are about and how they differ. The first characteristic is the belief. So fixed mindset people believe that people cannot be changed. You are who you are and you cannot be changed. Your talent and ability are your basic attributes and you cannot change them. So in our research, we look at whether people think health conditions are changeable or fixed. And for fixed mindset, believe that people's health condition is fixed. On the other hand, growth mindset believe that people can be changed, people can be developed, people can learn, and we can become better if we work hard and we have good strategy. And they are more willing to take risk. And they believe that the world will be better in terms of the health condition, growth mindset think that people's health condition can be changed. And the second characteristic I want to focus on is called a focus. So fixed mindset people focus on performance, because your performance and behavior tell the whole story of who you are. While growth mindset focus on learning and the process of improvement. The way they, another characteristic that differ is the way they interpret others' behavior. Fixed mindset focus on other people's personal traits when making judgments, and they interpret people's behavior by their personality. They believe that people cannot change their traits, so people with a fixed mindset tend to use one-time action to predict other people's future behavior. Growth mindset, they interpret other people's behavior depending on the situation instead of their personality. So people with a growth mindset believe that situation can change other people's behavior, so they are less likely to interpret behaviors based on their personality. Instead, they are more likely to take situation into account when they predict other people's behavior. Another major difference is how fixed mindsets and growth mindset perceive failure. So when fixed mindset fail, they feel discouraged because they are not looking good. And failure implies that they are not good enough, they are not smart. However, growth mindset see failure as a process to grow. It's an opportunity to improve. So when growth mindset fail, they are thinking what they can do differently next time so they can become better. For example, they will practice more and work harder, and they tend not to give up. So I talk about the four key characteristics that these two mindsets are about, and why understanding this mindset is important. Because this mindset can shape our lives in many ways. So this mindset were first introduced by Dr. Carol Dweck, and the impact of this mindset initially has been studied in the education setting. My co-authors and I are doing research to understand how this mindset influences consumers' responses to marketing campaigns. For example, we study how mindset influence consumers' responses to health messages, which encourage them to perform health behaviors such as using sunscreen and getting tested. We also conduct research to understand how fixed mindset and growth mindset respond to donation appeals differently and what drives people's donation behavior. So I want to say that you're not one mindset or the other, because the things happening in your life can trigger you to be more a growth mindset or fixed mindset. In one situation, you may feel that I can get better. So you will be in more of toward the growth mindset. In another situation, for example, when you see others perform better than you, so you feel that I'm not smart enough. And that would put you in a more fixed mindset.
So I think if you have a quick second, we do have a request for the name of the author that you just mentioned. If you have a second, you could put that in chat. I think it was really interesting as you and I talked, you know, that the growth mindset and fixed mindset, when you're thinking about donors, that actually can really impact, like how you're approaching some donors. So you gave a great example about maybe a charity that specifically helps let's take, and I'm not going to pick on a charity, but let's take the Lung Association, for instance. And so somebody who has a fixed mindset may say, well, you know, smoking is a behavior that people should be able to stop themselves. I'm not going to help the Lung Association because I don't want to help people who should be able to help themselves. Whereas a growth mindset person will say, wow, yes, there is that, but that there's opportunities to help smokers be non-smokers, or there are people who don't have lung disease that is started by smoking. It could be something that's inherited, like cystic fibrosis or something along those lines. And I thought it was interesting because you almost have to tailor your messages, not just to those with a growth mindset, but also figure out ways to attract those with a fixed mindset to maybe get them to a point where they may change their mind.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting because I thought that was it's a very interesting approach to messaging.
Right. So I want to add on to that is that this mindset was first introduced. It's more understanding about children's learning. Like they find that's what the CARE drag, the paper is all about. It's about learning in education setting. But we are I would say, if I understand correctly, at least we got that paper published. So I think we are the one that looking at this health charity. So we are applying the mindset into the donation in fundraising campaign to see how to make the donors, to understanding donors' mindset in terms of growth versus fixed, and how do you craft the message that can cater to appeal to that.
So why, we talk about the mindset, and I think we're, understanding that how people think is important, but why is it also understand not just how they think, but why donors give and why they actually don't give? Mm-hmm. Because I think I sometimes think we get fixed, and I did this in my career too, on the people that didn't give more than we focused on the people that did give. Which then, can sometimes lead to donor churn. So, but why is it important to think about and understand both?
So I would say understanding why donors give and don't give can help you reach your fundraising goals. So let me talk about why donors give. Our research shows that there are two main reasons. One of the important reasons is donation efficacy. Donation efficacy means whether donors believe that their donations are effective in solving the problems. People are more willing to donate when they think their donations are effective in helping those in need. They are more likely to donate when they think their donation has an impact because it makes them feel empowered. The second factor driving people's donation decision is emotion. In my research on donors' mindset, my co-authors and I study cost controllability. So we define cost controllability as whether or not people's misfortune is perceived as mostly their own fault. So when donors feel that people's misfortune is not their own fault, they feel more sympathetic for the person in need. Therefore, they are more willing to help and donate. In contrast, when donors feel that people's misfortune is their own fault, they tend to blame and feel that sympathetic for these people, and they withhold their donations. So let me tie this back to our discussion earlier about mindset. Our research shows that fixed mindset tend to blame those people who feel, when they feel that people's misfortune is their own fault. So they are less likely to help this type of people. So I want to using the health charity as examples. So consider the American Cancer Society asks for donations to fight cancer, which is a condition considered to be caused by uncontrollable factors, such as genetic factors. Consider another association, such as National Center for Addiction. This center encouraged donations to help people fight drug addiction. People perceive drug addiction as a condition to be caused by controllable factors, such as lifestyle factors. So when people feel that the cause of a health condition is less controllable, such as cancer, they are more likely to offer their help and donate. When donors feel that people's health conditions are due to the causes perceived as highly controllable, such as drug addiction, alcohol addiction, they tend to blame for these people and they are less willing to donate. And our research shows that this is true for fixed mindset, but not for growth mindset. Why? Because we find that people with a fixed mindset attribute the negative outcome of more controllable health conditions to these people's personality. They tend to blame people for not controlling their health better when they had a chance to do so. Fixed mindsets are less likely to donate to more controllable causes than the less controllable causes. However, fixed mindset, they feel inspired to help those in need, regardless of the responsibility of the individual. So growth mindset care more about the donation efficacy. In other words, they care more about if their donation can make an impact.
And I think we see more and more of that. And maybe it's because people are researching more online, but we're hearing a lot more about donors asking and wanting accountability and wanting to understand. And I would say especially younger donors. And I don't know if your research shows a difference in age groups in terms of what they're looking for or not. But we do see a lot of younger people asking a lot more questions about how is their money being used and how is their time going to be used, and they're putting more of a value. So I think that efficacy is becoming more important.
Yeah, I agree. In my study, I do not specifically segment based on the age, but I think that makes sense. Like they want to make sure it's all tied to the efficacy one, like how are you going to use my money? And then it also related to donors management as well, because you want to know if I donate to you, how are you going to use it? And do you really do what you promised to do? And they will decide if they want to donate back or not in the future.
So, so now that we've talked about efficacy and we have kind of agreed it's important, how do we use an understanding of efficacy and then also this positive negative emotion toward, or just positive negative emotion to develop messages that appeal to donors?
Sure. So first of all, you need to know your audience, knowing your donors, and provide a detailed information that can help a donor to decide whether they want to donate or not, by either providing statistics and sharing the outcomes about what you have achieved can also increase the donation efficacy. Or you can sharing the story to inspire the donors. In terms of the message framing, I think that's what I want to focus mainly on today. So we discuss about mindset, we talk about the cost controllability. What does that mean to the fundraiser? Like how can you, what's the key takeaway today that you can use to help your organization to raise money or time, have people volunteer time. So keep in mind that fixed mindset believe that people's characteristics and health conditions are fixed. You may think fixed mindsets are less willing to donate, but how do you frame your message so people with a fixed mindset may change their position? So luckily, my cohort and I find that people's perceived ability to control their health and their lives will influence whether fixed mindset want to donate or not. So what you can do is you can add this cost controllability element in your fundraising message and emphasize that people suffer because of their genetic factors instead of lifestyle factors. So donors with a fixed mindset actually resonate with less controllable causes. So on your donation page or your donation email, fundraisers should communicate why these people need donors' help. So our research shows that Cost controllability matters, and people with a growth mindset actually believe that all the health conditions change and deserve support, regardless of the responsibility of the individual. But there is still some way that we can further motivate a growth mindset to donate. So to how basically we look at a variable is called the benefit framing technique. So sometimes people are motivated to do something due to self-interest. Is it always true? I would say not necessary. So we want to understand which type of charity appeals are more persuasive, are more effective for growth mindset. So we look at two types of benefit frame, self-benefit message and other benefit message. So let me give you an example. Fundraiser can frame the message by either emphasizing how donations can benefit donors. For example, you can mention how proud or happy the donors will feel after they donate. So this is an example of self-benefit message. Alternatively, fundraiser can emphasize how donations can benefit those who are in need, such as how victims' life can be saved and enhanced. This is an example of other benefit message. So how to boost this donation efficacy in your message? Our research shows that growth mindset people, they are sensitive to the framing. So other benefit message, which make the benefit to those people who are in need, who suffer from the less controllable condition more salient. This technique will remind growth mindset that the less fortunate cannot help themselves and they require your support. So this other benefit message will encourage growth mindset to think that their donation can make an impact. So they are more likely to donate. However, for the more controllable causes, using other benefit message are not persuasive. Such emphasis on those who are in need will make growth mindset to question the donation efficacy to more controllable health condition. Because this, when you focus on others who can help themselves but do not do so, growth mindset may think that their donation will have limited impact. So what should you do? For the more controllable causes, it's better to use the self-benefit message. In other words, fundraisers should emphasize how donation will make donors feel good about themselves, because this message will boost donation efficacy and increase their donation intention. So let me summarize this and give you some key takeaways, some example about how can you stimulate growth mindset in your message. So to increase donation, charity fighting the less controllable causes can either trigger people's growth mindset. For example, you can say, we change and grow with your donation while helping others. And use other benefit message, such as how donation can benefit those who are in need. So for those charities fighting less controllable causes, another approach they can use is to stimulate a fixed mindset in their donation message. For example, you can say, we never change. We are constantly helping you and others. So for those charities fighting more controllable causes, what they should do is they should put people in this growth mindset in their donation message and use the self-benefit message, such as mentioning how proud or happy the donor will feel after they donate. The fundraising may even integrate some sentences that highlight the potential to change For example, experience is the best teacher, and emphasize improvement in their charity messages.
That's really interesting because I think just understanding that, controllable causes really do have to have a different type of messaging, right? So, controllable causes, they need to really look at the donor very specifically and talk about how it benefits them. But people with non-controllable, I guess is what you said, non-controllable causes definitely have to, their messages are very different. And it makes complete sense because I think, I think people inherently want to be spoken to, and they want to feel like the message is directed at them. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about today is it's going to be different for the different kind of charity. So we do have a question that came in during that last part of our conversation. What kind of techniques should we be using based upon what type of nonprofit you're raising money for? And I think you talked about this a little bit with the mindset. Do you think that one group over the other actually requires more or less communication before they make a decision on whether they're going to give or give a second time? Would be an add-on to that question.
Sure. So I would say this, the type of nonprofit, what I'm talking about today, I would say, even in my study is using health charities as the stimuli. But I think these techniques can apply to other type of nonprofit as well, especially. So what I was thinking is about this cost controllability. Actually, for example, like it can apply to the education fundraising. For example, I would say in your message, maybe you can you can say that students were born in a poor family, which is a less controllable cost. And so they need the scholarship to develop their potential. So, and in this case, it's the less controllable causes, right? So what you should do is you can stimulate a growth mindset and also communicate how donation can benefit the students. So I would say this cost controllability can apply to many others non-for-profit. So that's just what I'm thinking. It's a general technique, and it can even also apply to the church or any other nonprofit organizations that you are in.
So before we get to questions, can you, because we'd like to encourage questions because we are getting to the point where we're wrapping up our time here today. Can you provide us with any last suggestions, tips, or other information that we haven't discussed about really kind of getting into that, into the minds of our donors, understanding of what they think?
Sure. So I want to summarize what we talk about today is understanding donors' motivations and donor psychology is important. Your fundraising campaign should focus on increasing donation efficacy and reducing the negative emotions such as blame. And you need to craft a message that resonates with your donors. A final word of advice that I want to give you is make sure you maintain a good relationship with your donors and your volunteers. So in marketing, it's called customer relationship management, CRM. A CRM helps organizations to gather data throughout their customer journey. So you will get information such as their purchase history, their donation history, their preference, and also their motivation and any concerns that they may have. So I want to say, remember, customers acquisition versus retentions are equally important. So to achieve your fundraising goals, it's important to acquire new donors. But in the meantime, you should also make sure your existing donors happy and satisfied, and keep them having a deep connection with your cause.
So there's two things actually I want to comment on with your last statements there. One, we're huge advocates of using a dedicated CRM. And so I think there are some nonprofits who still do not use those. So we highly encourage those, and keeping those clean is significant, because understanding the people that you have already connected with is really important to get secondary gifts. But I also think that the other important point you made was, making sure it's not all just about getting new donors, right? Yes, that's important, but I think it's one of those things that it's really good for everybody to look at, because I think people at the end of each cycle, whether that's the year, they look at the number, they're looking at, did 100 donors give this year and 100 donors give last year? Where they need to be diving a little deeper into the data. And are they the same 100 donors, or only 50 of the donors the same and you have 50 new? And so it's taking some of those numbers and taking them a step further and really looking at donor churn to see how many donors they've lost over the course of the year, because those donors are going to be a lot easier to recapture than to go out and get, hopefully easier to recapture than it would be to go get new donors. And so it's really understanding not only the donors that you currently have, but also why did you lose maybe the ones that you did lose, and how can you go back and figure out how to recapture them?
I totally agree. So understanding their motivation is the key, and also the reasons for their donation at the first place, and keep engaging with them throughout their donor journey.
All right, so we have a couple of questions coming in. And again, please, I encourage you to ask questions. This one's great because we do get this question all the time. And I think this plays not just with donations, but with also consumers. So how does donor fatigue play into giving? And I guess that would be the same as consumer fatigue, from whether you're buying or things like that. So how does donor fatigue play into giving?
Mm-hmm. So I would say that, I would say for the fundraiser, be open to this possibility because donors may change the focus of their donation priorities. They may not donate to you, but they choose to donate to other organizations for some reason. Or maybe when they evaluate, especially when they evaluate what their gifts has achieved, maybe it was not their hope for. So why donors do not renew their donation? That's something keep in mind. So why they reduce their either donation frequency or reducing their giving amount? So several reasons would be like, actually a study shows that some reasons include the lack of communications about how their gifts were used, or they are dissatisfied with the use of their previous gift. So these are relationship management issue, right? It tied back to that CRM thing. But the good news is if those are the reason, then they are fixable. So what you can do is you can change about this perception by making sure that you talk about the outcomes associated with donors' previous gift, so that they feel their donation was used wisely and to increase their donation efficacy perception.
So, when you're going and looking at your LIBUNs and your SIBUNs, which everybody should be doing on a regular basis, maybe take a look and see if there are any patterns. Was it, that you lost a lot of people during a time where maybe during COVID, maybe they shifted their priorities to more emergent things. So maybe you're an arts organization that, got patrons who bought tickets at a certain level and couldn't because of the closure. How do you maybe communicate with them now so that you're able to bring them back and talk about, the value that you bring to them as an arts organization, and the value to bring to the community, and being able to provide great art. And I'm sure there's lots of other examples, but it's good to regularly look for patterns in both your LIBUNs and SIBUNs, so that you understand like maybe why you lost a group over a certain period of time.
Sure.
And then plan strategies accordingly to get them back.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that. Keep in mind that so you need to understand what motivated people to donate in the first place, what made them to give their either time or money in the first place. So basically you need to understand their underlying motivations. And so for example, like he understand what inspired people to attend the events like breast cancer work for the cure, and then make sure your fundraising campaign would tap into that motivation. So that when people are donating or volunteer, they really enjoy it. It's not just because they are doing what they promised they would do, it's they actually enjoy it. So I think understand this underlying motivation is the key. So that can help you build your fundraising strategy.
It never hurts to pick up the phone call and ask. Sometimes
Yeah,
it'll give you
exactly.
Insights into it.
I totally agree. Listen to your donors, listen to your volunteers. Don't get shy or guilty. When you, I would say, just thinking about your campaigns more than just asking for money, you actually are offering people an opportunity to help. So you are, it's not just, I want your time, I want your money. And it's also tied back to the CRM. So you need to maintain, this is a relationship. It's not a transaction. So if people feel that every time that you contact them is ask for money or ask for something, then you need to think about a better strategy so that you can have this real relationship with your donors and make them feel they are really resonating with your cause and they have this deep relation and connection with you.
We are actually out of time, and that was a great conversation. I'm sure we could talk about, donor mindset and that for hours and days. And obviously, you've spent a lot of your career doing research on it. So we are just so happy that you were here to join us today. And thank you for your expertise and your insight.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking with all of you and see you virtually today.
All right, well, everybody, before we wrap up today, I just wanted to share our upcoming webinar on Tuesday, October 19th. We're going to continue our 3-part series on working with donors and the psychology behind giving. This actual topic will be the psychology behind giving at year end. And so we'll be taking a lot of our conversation today and turning that into a little bit more of a tactical and technical way that we can approach donors at year end. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody, please sign up for our next webinar. That will be at art.orgsolutions.com. And if you do have questions, I hope that you don't mind, Meng-Hua, that we could actually have people contact you. So put your email on there. And then also, contact us here at .org if you have any questions. So thank you everybody for coming. We did record this session and we will be sending it out and it will be posted by the end of the week on our .org YouTube channel, along with all of our webinars over the last year and a half.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Have a nice week. Bye.